Welcome to Real Estate Investing Abundance, the show for busy, fulfilled professionals like you to learn how to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alan Lomax.
Hello, enlightened investors. Thanks for being with us today. I'm your host, Dr. Alan Lomax, and today we are going to talk about what the future holds for real estate automation and what that is going to look like. And with us today is Jon Darbyshire, who in 2001 launched SmartSuite, the work management platform that manages and processes from any industry on one platform. SmartSuite unites essential elements to get work done, regardless of company size or type. So, Jon, tell us about a memorable experience from your formative years.
Sure. I'll give you a good real estate example. I was a junior in college, and probably like most college students, didn't have enough money to kind of go around while I was going to school, and I was a finance major, and they talked me into going to a course on buying your first property with no money down while I was in college.
That was offered in a college curriculum?
No, it was promoted through the college as something that happened over the weekend on a Saturday and Sunday event. So I ponied up. It was like $100, but at the time was a lot of money. Went to that event, got this big course book of, how to buy your first property. And I was one of the few that actually went and tried it. So I went and found a local home in Kansas City that had two levels to it, an upstairs and a downstairs. I thought that I could rent the upstairs out and live downstairs. So I approached the owner and said, I'm a college student. I have no money to make a down payment. And I'm obviously not going to be able to get a loan. I don't have a job. Would you finance this for me? And they were in a position where they needed to get out fast. And he said, I'll absolutely finance it. It was at the time 13.5%. Back this was 85, 86, which seemed like a decent rate.
Yeah, back then that was that. I mean, it sounds outrageous, but that was pretty decent back then.
Yeah. So no money down. We agreed on a monthly payment for that. And as I was looking at the property, I put an ad in the paper to lease out the top floor. So I was bringing in prospective lessees to look at the property, and I actually leased it before I bought it. So it was 3 bedrooms upstairs. And for the next 3 years, I lived downstairs with a roommate for free, made my monthly payments. And then when I graduated college, sold the property, broke even. But in my case, I lived for 3 years for no cost. So it was my first experience into really being an entrepreneur and really into the real estate side of things.
Yeah, that house hacking is really a brilliant concept. And I'm sure back then in 1980, you'd never heard of the concept of house hacking. But you did it anyway, and it's a great way to get started in real estate. Well, let's get into this aspect of real estate automation, which is a hot topic in a lot of ways these days because real estate is, well, in many ways, it is labor intensive with a lot of hands-on operations. So how are we going to automate all that?
Yeah. Well, let me give you my perspective from SmartSuite, which is the company that I'm at now. So we help organizations manage any business process or project inside of their organization using our platform. One of the industries that uses our platform quite regularly is the real estate industry, whether that be commercial, residential, investors, kind of everything in between, from really large hedge funds down to that one, maybe it's just a single person managing a series of properties and they've retired. It's just more income based. So what we try to help people do is capture the information that's involved in that process. Maybe if let's say you're retired and you have 5 or 6 properties, both residential and commercial, that you're managing, we help you capture the information around the property and the maintenance aspects that's there, the people that are leasing that from you, maybe the background checks that you did, just everything that helps manage that process. On the automation side, it's just all about automating those manual things that you tend to do over and over. It could be as simple as I approve somebody for an apartment complex that I own, and there's just a welcome email that needs to go out with certain information. Instead of manually typing that each time, you create the template, and when you say that this has been leased, it would send the email. It could be as simple as following up with people that have not paid their rent and having different types of of emails that go out at different times, along that process as well. Those are the two least complex types of things, all the way towards, regularly scheduling maintenance and notifying vendors that, it's time to come back and perform maintenance at this property, of these types of things that's there. And so an automation can be anything that you need it to be that is typically based on something that you do manually, routinely. And I just want to use drag and drop technology just to automate that so that I can, focus on other things.
Well, that sounds wonderful. So tell us about, I guess, the financial side of that. How does your platform integrate with, say, the property management company?
Sure. Yeah. So I think let's take maybe a hedge fund that is built around real estate, where they are reviewing and analyzing properties first to potentially invest in, or maybe certain geographies that they would want to invest in. So they can bring in that data from different data sources directly into our product. It will help them begin to understand, based on different views or charts or graphs, if they've created properties that might meet the requirements that they would want to invest in at this point. So they haven't made an investment. It's just maybe areas or types of properties that meet their criteria. The second part is, once they go down that path, maybe it identifies the properties that they would want to do the due diligence around. And now I have if I'm a hedge fund, I have a pretty intensive due diligence process that I go through, typically checklist based, that could involve 3 or 4 or 5 people. So it notifies those people that this property is now ready for diligence. Here's the base information. So maybe the finance team is looking at it more from the finance perspective. Maybe the property management team is just doing their evaluations to make sure that it's up to code within the areas that they expect it to be, all the way through that process. And then once something kind of goes through the diligence process and you decide, okay, it is something that we want to make an offer on, then you can manage the offer side, where I could then compare that against comparables in the local area, or maybe in different geographies around the country that are similar, to understand maybe the price per square foot, or how I might, make my first offer to purchase that property. And that process just keeps going. Once I've purchased the property, maybe it's an apartment complex, I now need to manage that property, or hire somebody externally to management for you. So now I go through, it passes on to the next team that is responsible for just the upkeep, care, and management of the property. And then at some point in that life cycle, you may be curious to understand, when does a property begin to meet the requirements for us to sell it based on the economic conditions that are underway. So let's say that real estate prices in that particular geo are at an all-time high. Maybe you're comparing that to see, does it meet my thesis on when we sell properties? Or maybe you say the cash flow is so good, I'm not even concerned about the value of the property. I'm looking at over 20 years, this type of cash flow with this percent that I'm very comfortable with. So any type of product like SmartSuite that helps you manage processes would help you kind of start from the beginning of that process and then manage it, all the way through. And in our case, we work with mom and pops all the way up to Fortune 1000 companies. So in the use case that I just gave you, that's actually from a pretty large hedge fund with hundreds of people that are involved in that process. And they use our product each and every day to manage the work that they're doing as properties kind of come across their desk. A long-winded answer, but hopefully that helps.
Well, it's an interesting answer, and it certainly sounds like a very viable product. But just listening to you go through all of that, it's kind of hard for me to really conceptualize how specifically this is actually working. Well, let's just take an example of a mom and pop operation of, say, a 75-unit multifamily complex, and they have no automation, and they have come to the point in time where they realize that they're way behind the times, and so they want to start getting automated. Where would you start with this mom and pop operator?
Yeah, well, what's probably most common across examples or use cases like you just presented is they're probably using some type of spreadsheet currently to manage that. They probably don't have a product that they've used prior. So the first step is they take that spreadsheet with the information that they have for the 75 units that are there. They can either import that from the spreadsheet or manually input that into a product that captures all of the data points that they feel are important to them. Once the data is in there, that's when they can start to look at the ways that they can automate things that they do each and every day that are just time consuming for them. Like I mentioned, the emailing is the most simplest of any type of automation. It typically happens first, and that in some cases can save, hours a day from people. Just that's all they're doing is just looking through a list of items in the spreadsheet and saying, this is overdue. I need to send an email to this person, or this person has moved out and now I need to confirm that. And I need the next tenant to know that this is the move-in date, right? That process alone, you can automate that process in a matter of minutes. And then it just happens based on the rules that you put in place on when to fire these different types of automations that are there.
So that mom and pop could take that from a very simplistic level to a pretty complex level. And are they doing these processes on their own? Do you have a team that takes their data, puts it in there, sets up the automation? How does that work?
Yeah, we do both of those. So we have some of the more, the younger generation of investors that we work with like to do those things I just said all by themselves. They understand technology. They've kind of grown up with it. They're very comfortable with that. And they like to make the decisions on how they want the look and feel to be, what reports they create, what types of dashboards that they want to see that kind of tells them the success that they're having from a financial perspective that's there. More of the seasoned investors, people that are, 45, 50 or older, are less inclined to want to do their own setup in most cases. So they work with us or our onboarding team. We typically take their spreadsheets and help them basically bring that into a product like SmartSuite and initially set that up based on the way that they want to run their business. We also have instances where people may own 40 or 50 properties with a group of people. They still may be retired, but that's what they manage. And in some of those cases, they actually hire one of our partners to come in and look at their business and say, what's the best way for us to kind of manage this most efficiently long-term without, we want to go play golf and do other things. We don't want to manage property now as a full-time business. So how do we set that up in a way that it becomes more self-serving that's there? So we have partners that are real estate experts that work with them to set that up in a way that kind of meets their lifestyle that they have.
Well, it sounds like a great product. How does this work with workplace cultures and employee engagement?
Yeah, great question. So, a couple of things are kind of happened in the work world since COVID. There's a lot more people working remotely now, and a lot of businesses have made that a decision long term that is going to be the approach that they continue to take. Any work management platform like SmartSuite will help increase the collaboration and communication that you have between those employees that are working remotely, meaning that as you're working and doing your work inside of the product, it has built in things for you to have conversations with other people right in the context maybe of the property that you're working on. So just think of like a built-in a chat communication, but it's specific to the topic at hand. So I could click the property one and I could see a conversation with everybody that I've had and ask questions about. But when I flip the property two, maybe a different group of people, different conversations that are happening. So it maintains that for you. So as you come and go and flip in and out of properties, you kind of have the context of all of those communications in one place. Most products also have some type of a member directory so that they can see a listing of all the people that they work with their pictures, their time zones, their addresses. In one click, I could start a conversation. I could either call them, start a video call, maybe just a text message, but it helps them stay engaged with other people. They may be all over the world, not just in a, in a certain city that's there. So the collaboration of work management tools in general is just meant to support the communication across many different vehicles, whether they like to use email, Slack, text messaging, chat, whatever that might be.
Yeah, and utilizing these various different workplace communication tools that I have been exposed to. One of the issues I've always had with them is you mentioned you can open up a conversation on property one, and everybody involved in that then can become a part of that conversation. Well, the problem that I have often seen with these communication devices is that communication stream becomes really clogged. I mean, for instance, I'm going to want to talk to my lender in conjunction with property one, but I don't need my lender involved in my conversation with my maintenance staff. And so do you have a way and a means to easily sort those out so that you have a conversation with your lender and then you can have an ongoing conversation with your plumber?
Yeah, so we do that as all work management products do in a number of different ways. Email is most common in the real estate industry to have those discussions like you've just mentioned that are there. And we allow you to then tag those conversations in your email and have them stored inside of that property record. So you don't have to go into your email box and see everything. I could go to property one and I could see the emails that I have sent and received and the replies to that in that context that's there. They're still in your email, but they're in the context of the property that's there. Larger companies, especially like the hedge fund example that I gave you earlier, they have moved away from email as their primary communication source, and they use products like Slack, which is, it's just a messages concept that has channels associated with it. So I could have a channel for my finance person and another channel for maybe my maintenance person, and all the communications happen inside of there, but you could also break them down by property in the same way. So we integrate with those platforms like that, so you can kind of choose the communication method that's best, for your organization.
It sounds like a one tool fits all. And you mentioned that you're working with huge hedge funds down to mom and pop situations. How do you manage that? Because those are very, very different kinds of operations. How do you build a tool that services that broad range of clientele?
Yeah, so SmartSuite is what's known as a no-code platform. And what no-code means is you use drag and drop capabilities to configure the product in a way that supports the way that you want to do your business. And no-code is meant to allow the subject matter experts, that are doing the process, that understand it, to be able to model things out the way that they want it done, compared to hiring a software developer and building a piece of software over a period of time. So it really puts the power in the hands of the people that are doing the work that are there. And in the case of SmartSuite, we offer over 200 templates broken down by industry. One of those industries is real estate. I think we have about 20 templates around real estate. So if you are interested to manage things at a level like the hedge fund example that I've given you, we have a template that's going to give you, it's the big version of that, right? But if you're somewhere in between, we kind of give you the intermediate version of a best-in-class process, all the way down to, I just have a couple of properties that I want to manage. I'm kind of doing this as a side business. I have a real job, but I need to do this. Then we're going to give you the bare bones version. So what happens is people look at those templates, get ideas for maybe, they're all best-in-class templates, meaning developed by professionals that understand that process very well. And then they tailor that to fit how they want to manage things, just using this drag and drop capabilities. And when I talk about drag and drop, it could be as simple as I have a drop down for property type, and maybe in the template it has 5 types, but you only use 2. So you could remove the 3 that you don't use, or you'd like to name it something else. You just rename it the way you want to name it that's in there. Maybe on the form that you look at that shows your properties, you don't like the field in the position that it's in, you just drag it over to where you want to see it. And now it's set for you, customized the way you want to view the information.
Sounds like a very useful product. Well, Jon, tell us how we can get in touch with you to take advantage of this.
Sure. Yeah. If you would have an interest to connect with me personally, the best way to do that is through LinkedIn. It's just Jon, Jon Darbyshire, and you can just look me up and send me a connection. I'm happy to connect. If you were interested in learning about SmartSuite or any of the ways that we could help you from your real estate investment perspective, you could go to smartsuite.com. We have a free 14-day trial, no credit card required. So you just sign up. You can download the templates, give things a try. And then at the end of that trial, if it's just 3 users in your organization, you can move to our free plan. And if you're more than 3 users and something more complicated, you could move to one of our paid plans that start at $10 per user per month.
So how extensive is the free plan? I mean, you've got only 3 users on that, but do you have access to all of the templates?
Yeah, we have access to all the templates, and then you're limited to 1,200 records. So basically think of a record as a property that's there. So in a solution, you could have up to that number of things that you're accounting for. So for most small getting started investors, that's going to be all that you need that's there. You don't have to pay for that. But then when you kind of graduate up past that level, it's all usage based at that point forward.
Okay. Well, how do you utilize the SmartSuite to fuel the business process optimization?
If you're talking from a real estate perspective, right, it has to do with the templates that we have and just downloading those templates as a starting point to understand what a best in class process maybe in that particular area looks like. Or you can create your own. If you already have your own process and you're comfortable with that, then you could either take a template and modify it, or you could just start from scratch and just add the fields and the information that you want. As part of our team, if you onboarded with us, we give each new customer 8 hours of onboarding time to help you kind of work through that and really understand the features that are available that you might not be aware of, and help you get your information in to kind of view the reports and the data that makes sense to you. And then if it's more complicated than that, if you're a large organization, we have a series of partners that are business process experts in those particular areas. So we would find one of the partners that had an expertise in real estate that would work with you.
Well, say you onboard your company here and you've got the templates set up and your process is set up, and you get into it and you go, God, this just isn't working for me. How difficult is it to modify the processes you've put in place?
Yeah, that's the beauty of any no-code product, not just SmartSuite, is that's the power of the product itself, is the configuration that you want to do. No two companies are ever 100% the same. I can tell you that. I mean, we have real estate companies that download the same templates hundreds of times, but they all tailor those just a little bit and have their own reports, the own way that they want to set things up, their own naming structures that they're just comfortable with. And so that's the way you use it. And that's what no code is meant to be, is to configure your business process the way that you want it, not to be confined to a product telling you how it should be. That's there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just thinking of QuickBooks and how you go in and you set up your accounts, and then you come to the end of the year and you go, my gosh, that really isn't the information I wanted there.
Right.
So, and in QuickBooks, it's really pretty difficult to go back into. Once you have that company set up, it's pretty difficult to make modifications. So do you have that same issues with SmartSuite?
Yeah, SmartSuite is a relational database structure. So you can just think of it, if you're a technical person, you can think about tables and attributes or fields, right? And you're just linking fields to tables and joining, and say, I want this information to link to this information over here. So that's all just done with a couple of clicks, drag and drop of moving things around. So in the case of QuickBooks, it's much more structured. The information that you have can't be changed in many cases in QuickBooks. You can add things to that, but you can't modify the core structure of QuickBooks. In the case of a no-code platform, it's a relational database. It's basically like Lego blocks. You build the structure that makes sense for you. So it is that you get to the end of the year, and it's quite often that people's progress on or their progression of the process increases each year as they learn more and more about how to make things more efficient in their business. So you just modify that, at any point in time.
Cool. Well, Jon, it's been wonderful having you with us today, and thank you for bearing with me in my ignorance and informing us of the product you have and how these products work for investors. Enlightened investors, thank you for being with us today. I look forward to being with you next episode. Jon, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.